Have you ever read a book that, I know this is cliche, but you could say it changed your life? Maybe you read it, and for those fiction lovers of you, just a sweeping story took you off your feet and it changed your life. For me, I'm a geek. I love nonfiction, love it. There's a book called The Oz Principle. It's a business book. Has anyone heard of it? The Oz Principle? Of course my husband has, because I haven't stopped talking about it since I read it, which was about 2 years ago. Sorry, honey. So 2 years ago, I not only read the book, but I had the opportunity to go to a conference where there was a seminar leader talking about the book. And not only did he talk about the book, he actually illustrated some of the concepts in the book, and it was experiential learning. You know those moments where you're given a task? We do it somewhat here where we're asked questions, or we get up here and we do it ourselves, and then you get the evaluation after and you walk away feeling changed. So the idea of the Oz Principle is, you know, the story, The Wizard of Oz, and Dorothy goes along and meets the Scarecrow, Tin Man, and all the different characters there. And the Oz Principle is about the steps to accountability. So the steps to accountability, they equate the 4 steps: see it, own it, solve it, do it, with the Wizard of Oz characters. Now, I will spare you the Wizard of Oz story there, so hopefully most of you know it, but the concept that I love most, that has been most impactful in my life, is called above or below the line. So the general idea goes, accountability, you might, I don't know if you shudder when you heard the word accountability because it has maybe been used in a business sense where your boss is asking, well, who was accountable for this? And not in the best terms. We don't usually hear it like, who's accountable for this fantastic result? It doesn't happen very often. I wish it was, and working on changing that. But the word accountability can seem a little bit scary. And what's scarier is we're not taught the ideas of how do you become accountable. I have this concept I want to be there, but the concept of above and below the line, you can imagine a line right here, straight across. And above are the steps to accountability. The see it, see a problem, own a problem, solve the problem, and then do the problem. That seems very, very simple, right? If only our life was lived in these steps of see it, own it, solve it, do it. However, we are human. So our first reaction is to go below the line. Now, I'll describe to you what below the line looks like. It's not my job. That was Tammy's job. She didn't do her job, so whatever, it's not my fault. Below the line with a spouse could be something as easy as like, well, you didn't tell me to walk the dogs, so I didn't walk the dogs. We've been there. It could also be ignore and deny. That's totally not happening. I didn't see it. No, I'm going to ignore it. It's not there. Another favorite, maybe you have some favorites here. Wait and see. We're going to wait and see what happens. In the business world, that happens a lot. I work in a nonprofit, and it happens a lot. You know, we're just going to, let's wait and see what it looks like next week. Basically, everything is an excuse for not taking ownership of the situation. It's all valid, and we all have our favorite reasons to go below the line. In fact, I love joking about going below the line because we could make it bad, we could make it totally wrong, like, how dare you go below the line and point the finger to someone else? But it's there. The question is, or the statement is not about not going below the line, but how long do we stay below the line in that victim mentality? Because if we're constantly pointing the finger in someone else's direction, it leaves us powerless. And powerless, we can't get above the line. You can't possibly take ownership for that project or lead a team in doing something entirely new if you're constantly saying it's everybody else's fault that you couldn't do it. So my joy right now is not only learning about this concept, but sharing it with my company. I've had the honor and privilege of leading some discussion groups like this with my fellow colleagues. So imagine we all work together, and we now have this vocabulary of above and below the line. Simple idea, right? Very, very simple. But imagine being able to talk about it with one another. Not only talking about it, it's okay. You can say, hey, are we below the line on this? Are we not taking our ownership with it? But what if we could meet together? You know, son, we could sit down and go, okay, we've been below the line with this. We've totally been bitching about our colleague Tammy who's not taking ownership for it, but what are we gonna do? Let's step it up. And then we're able to get ourselves out and get ourselves back up into above the line. That for me is my biggest challenge personally, is how do I take myself from the state of victimization where it's not my fault, I don't want to do it, blame everybody else, to, all right, I'll see it. And that I have to thank all of you for. Because here, sitting together in this circle, you offer feedback. You're offering feedback right now with your eyesight and your nods. You're going to offer feedback through son's evaluation afterwards. And then maybe a round table discussion, you offer feedback again. And through feedback, it's that first step where we go from below the line to above the line if we decide that it's valuable to listen to people. We might not always like how people say it, but people are constantly giving us feedback and constantly giving us an opportunity to see our problem from a different perspective and a different angle. So if we're able to open, and I've learned so many lessons here from being at Toastmasters to get above the line, and what I love even more is now I get to connect my two worlds. This fantastic book and a way to change corporate culture with the tactical skills that we learn in Toastmasters of how to offer and receive feedback. So I'll leave it at that and appreciate your feedback very, very much.
Well, that's great news. Now whenever my manager calls me in and says, I hold you all accountable in this room, I can say, thank you! Yes! All right, our next speaker is Marty. He's going to talk about
email advertising.